Hello, my name is Liuhuaying, a data visualization designer. I study information design and data visualization at Northeastern University. Since then, I have designed and coded over 70 interactive visualization projects. Some are big, some are small, and about 20 of them were for data journalism, and over 35 focused on science communication. What I have learned is that personal engagement is essential. We often talk about a human-centered approach, but aren't we, the designers, the first human in this process? So to do our best, we need to stay motivated, connected, not just ticking boxes for others. Still, many times I felt this is not interesting. The data feels boring, the visualization lacks challenge, or the topic doesn't intrigue me. So in this talk, I will share how I have really engaged myself through creative process across my information is beautiful projects. Currently, I'm a data visualization specialist and a faculty member at the Complexity Science Hub, where we have over 70 researchers on 15 topics in complexity systems. Researchers here often come to me for help to create interactive visualizations to communicate their scientific results. And usually they already have an idea, but honestly, many of the ideas don't seem exciting at first. For example, Hannah Schuster asked me to create a heat stress map of Austria, like the one in her paper, showing how districts are affected by heat, both in the past and project into the future. At first glance, it looked like a standard color-coded map, something tools like Flourish or Data Wrapper could handle. But I thought, at very least, it's interesting to explain what makes the heat stress index so special, especially compared to just looking at temperature alone. So I started crafting this storytelling narrative. And during that process, one moment really struck me. Even under the strictest climate policies, most districts still face high future heat stress. And if we take less action, or none at all, it could get even worse. That felt really hopeless. Like, no matter what we do, it's not enough. Of course, we didn't want to leave people in despair. So we started with the worst case scenario and then show how even small improvements can still make a difference. At some point, I felt visuals and narrative weren't enough. I wanted people to feel the heat stress, the urgency and tension, like how a hot summer actually feels. I started learning piano 2 years ago and I learned how chords can express tension. So I sonificated data using musical chords to represent different levels of heat stress. I also made the map colors gloomier to reflect the mood. And like the story, direction matters. A median risk that's rising feels different from one that's improving. It carries a different sense of urgency and hope. For example, in Vienna, the sequence from 2018 to 2023 goes median, median, low, median, median, median. And that median in 2019 feels different from the others because it's followed by a drop to low the next year in 2020. Now pay attention to the first two chords that corresponds to the median. Then I coded music in Python and refined it in Moose Score. And that's how a simple map became a multimedia story about climate risk and our human feeling. Another example is our project Zoonotic Web, initiated by Amelie. It began with a very technical goal to visualize a network of pathogens and hosts and show communities of zoonotic sources that share similar agents. In network science, building a graph with nodes and links and running community detection isn't particularly new or exciting by itself. What made this network interesting wasn't the method. It was what the network represented and how. As a co-author of the paper, I first created those network figures for it. And when I started working on an interactive version, I wanted to add icons to the nodes and include more context to make it easier for a general audience to understand. When I designed the icons for the agents, I was learning about their different types and family structures. While defining the link styles for transmission, I was learning the meaning behind those connections. And when I presented the communities, I was learning those clusters weren't just math. They revealed real-world risks, showing how agents and species group based on their relations to our human health. I didn't understand all those at first. Emily helped a lot by correcting me and adding examples. For me, what started as just another network became a scientific journey, and it's exactly that journey I wanted to share with my audience. Another network project I work on explores neighbor transitions in a net zero era. It visualizes the findings of the research paper in collaboration with iNet Oxford. I used the metaphor of an orchard garden to symbolize the dynamics and exchanges in the job market. Like the previous projects, it started as a complex technical network. Nodes representing occupations, links showing transitions between them. I was initially asked to create an interactive version of this network in a paper where users could hover over an occupation and see its connected neighbors, much like many other network visualizations. But I wanted to go further. In addition to building this qualitative narrative to explain the research context and findings, I spent a lot of time exploring a more expressive visual that still preserved the original network but tailored to its intended messages. I began with a standard force-directed layout to verify the network structure and clusters, similar to what appeared in an original paper. From there, I created a custom layout. I defined a central points to each category based on its cluster center, and initialized occupations around those points. So the network kept its force link properties but became more organized. While adjusting the link force strength and number of iterations, the clusters became more compact, almost like orchard trees without trunks. The final results look similar to a packed circle layout, but it stays loyal to the network original structure. Then I focused on links. Since each occupation has a similar number of links by priority type, I drew links inside each category bubble when they stay within the same group. That way, it's easier to see how easy jobs move around within their group and jump across categories. This inspired me to visualize the links distribution within each node. The links are grouped by priority and colored according to the categories they connect to. So if a link crosses into a different category, it shows a different color than the node's own category. For example, this node's category is yellow. Among its priority 1 links, only one link, the red one, crosses into a different category. I also plotted this in an original network to see how it affects the overall structure. This is the more compact version, now with trunks. This project showed me that what started as a standard interactive network became an opportunity to rethink how we can visually align structure and meaning. The last project, Not My Name, is one that many people found especially interesting. But honestly, when I first started work on it, I wasn't sure if it would be interesting at all. It began with something personal. A Chinese name written in Pinyin is very specific to us. It feels like the only way to represent our names in English. But in Western contexts, it becomes surprisingly ambiguous. A simple pinyin spelling can refer to many different Chinese names, with entirely different meanings and characters. At first, I wanted to create an illustrated data story to share this experience. For example, a Chinese scholar is attending a conference overseas and tries to introduce herself by name. It felt like an elephant in a room, but I wasn't sure if it was an elephant that only I could see. I also struggled with how to visually present the structure of Pinyin and Chinese characters. Like in this example, the characters are grouped first by tone and then further organized by their Pinyin. That challenge became the original inspiration for using trees as a metaphor. And you might notice the trees here are similar to the ones from the Neighbor Orchard Garden project. Then I also experimented with visual expressions of ambiguity. Instead of focusing on a single character story at a conference, this piece shows a network of scholars that you can explore by selecting any Chinese scholar. Here you can see how characters with the same pinyin blend into something unreadable. During that exploration, I started to casually explain the idea to some Western colleagues, partly to test whether this elephant was visible to others. Our researchers from the Network Inequality Group shared how this ambiguity actually causes problems in their research when trying to disambiguate Chinese scholar names in publication datasets. So we decided to turn it into a proper research topic. And in our early meetings, I had to explain over and over how Chinese naming works. That process pushed me to create Not My Name and publish it, even it just for our own understanding. And those conversations helped clarify what needed to be explained for a Western audience and what details only mattered to native speakers. For example, if you don't know the language, those characters are unreadable whether they overlap or not. For another example, I originally thought of using a Chinese poem to illustrate how language becomes flattened when tones are removed. But many non-native speakers cannot even distinguish the tones by hearing, or confuse them with accents from other languages. This inspired me to add both pronunciation sounds and color to the visualization. Before I arrived at this final piece, I went through many experiments with visualization and storytelling, negotiation between clarity and richness, and consideration for cultural differences. And this year, artist Melinda Shiposh also joined our project. It's no longer just a visualization project, it has grown into a larger initiative that spans scientific study and artist exploration. Okay, now some takeaways. First, be curious about the problem, not just the dataset. There are tons of datasets out there and they can be used in many ways. The key question is, what makes this data special for your project? And what problem is it trying to solve? Or what knowledge is it meant to reveal? And second, start with the giving, but don't stop there. Spend some time being a bit rebellious. Explore beyond the initial requirements and imagine alternative ways to tell the story. Third, process is part of the product. Even ideas you don't end up using this time might inspire your next project. Last, be honest about what you know and how you feel. When you ask for clarification or learn new context, that's not just for you. It's part of the story your audience needs too. and your own reactions or feelings, often resilient with others. So don't be afraid to share those. That's all. Thank you for attending my talk.